I thought about asking this question because sometimes I'll just kind of see, do I think I already know the answer, or what's the teacher going to say? Because I can see that my motives for asking it may be suspect to some degree, like I'm grasping at something. But the thing is, I would really like to hear more about your experiences with Walter, because you have said that you do have a lot of, it sounds like, gratitude towards him. And it's hard for me to imagine that the experience you had with your dream, where you saw this ego structure or whatever, however you want to refer to it, this crumbling. And it's hard for me to imagine that there weren't things that went on as part of your working with him that were kind of central to that.
Yeah, that question has been asked to me often.
Okay.
It's difficult to reply. I mean, I could talk to you about what we did together very easily, but how that influenced the subsequent happenings is completely hypothetical, because I had that experience and I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't had it. And so when I look into it honestly, I cannot say that anything that we did was the cause of my awakening. I have been asked this question a lot, so I've tried to tune that station in, and I find it impossible. Walter was a Gurdjieff student, and he had that outlook, and it was valuable learning that, but there were things about Walter that I did not buy entirely. He was subject to what I call magical thinking, and so I had to kind of filter that part out. Walter was a very interesting man. He was a photographer like me, but he'd been in a Hollywood movie stills photographer for a while, and was kind of influenced by that world. Well, he's a very interesting guy. What happened was, I was already an accomplished photographer when I met Walter. I didn't really know anything about him. I had an exhibition of my photographs, and at the opening, a woman came up to me and said, "Your photographs are really lovely." I said, "Thank you." And she said, "There's this other wonderful photographer, Walter Chappell, living down the road, 20 miles down the road." Well, I'd never heard of Walter, so I went down there to meet him. He wasn't there. His girlfriend said I could wait, and they had a beautiful vegetable garden, so I walked around in there and just enjoyed looking at it. Very exotic, beautiful. Later I found out that Walter was a really good gardener. That was one of his attributes. So I'm waiting maybe for an hour, and then Walter shows up. And I introduced myself, and he said, "Oh, I've just come from your show." And I said, fishing for a compliment and for validation, "Well, what did you think?" And he looked at me. He was a very stern man, large, tall, stern man. And he said, "You have a living root." And I was really insulted by that. It felt as if he was belittling my work. See, it was just a root, and it really has to grow. I mean, come on. I got 45 images on the wall here, and people are buying them. So, that's what I felt. And later I found out that he was only doing what I'm doing now, which is speaking as accurately as he could. That was his real evaluation. And later, after working on photography with him for a couple of years, I began to understand his point of view on my earlier work, because it certainly jumped forward. So we had that right from the beginning, that even though I didn't accept it right from the beginning, that he was a mentor. I resisted it. I didn't want any mentors. I was a ruffian, psychologically. I still am, but I'll take a mentor now if one shows up. So what Walter did with me is make me keep explaining myself. And he would say, nah, that's not it. That was one thing. He did a lot of that. And then in those days, I was easily embarrassed in certain ways. And what Walter would do is find some way of stepping on those toes. He could spot them. Like one example is, we had a house and we got this new Congolium floor for it. It's like linoleum, but better, right? And just had this put down, and Walter shows up a couple of days later. So he contrived to get so drunk that he dropped a burning cigarette on the floor without anybody seeing it, and it burned a hole. And it was so intentional, I understand now. It was a lesson, but a hard one. Another thing that he would do is, I'd have some kind of gathering with other friends, and he would drink. He loved to drink and smoke. He was a bit of an alcoholic, but not entirely, if you can understand that. He would say, some people drink and get stupid. I guess I'm like that sometimes, but in the morning I'm okay again. Some people are always stupid. This is the Walterism. Anyway, when my friends showed up and we're having this party, Walter would spoil the party. He would pretend to be a lot more drunk than he was and start grabbing women and spilling drinks and alienating all my friends, and they would end up saying, how can you be with a bore like this, you know? But I had to be, because I was getting some nutrition that couldn't be explained to anyone else. So I don't really operate that way. I think I'm more genteel, but not always. So what Walter did for me, I think, was to show me how attached I was to my ego trip. And I think, so maybe later when that went out the window with this dream, could have been influenced by him, but I think that had to end anyway. I mean, it seems to me that what I'm saying is that what I feel myself to be now, what I feel myself to be now seems to have been inevitable. It's the fulfillment of some internal program that seems to just have been there. I can't explain this. I mean, I have no theory for it or any explanation. But I feel now, right now, in speaking with you, that this is what I was meant to do. This is what all that past suffering was preparing me for. That the things that I learned through intense suffering are things that want to be said. That may sound discombobulated. If it does, it's the best I can do, you know. But like, I feel right now that I'm in my wheelhouse. I could do this for a long time, and there's actually no question that I fear, or any personal observation. I don't care what someone says to me, really. To get to what you were talking about, Amy. If someone comes up to me on a surfboard and says, man, you're a shitty surfer, Robert, you're also an asshole. Fine, really, fine by me. I guess I'm glad I don't have to say that to you to feel good, to balance out my agony and my grief. Otherwise, that'd be terrible.
Is that it, having compassion for them? And
yes, you have compassion for them, because nobody really wants to be that nasty. It doesn't feel, being nasty doesn't feel good. It feels a lot better to smile and laugh than it does to insult someone, really. And it's better for your liver also. That's all I can say about Walter. He's a beloved figure in my life. He probably did add some weight to that unraveling, But I think the unraveling had to happen. That's how I see it.
But I do have something else, and I hope I can get this across clearly as well. And it's jumping off a previous question about being accomplished. And you said, well, if this person can do this and this, they're accomplished. But really, what if someone really is a fuck up? You know, what if they never actually get very good?
Yes, then I don't call that an accomplished person.
Yeah.
But there's no one like that in this room at the moment.
Yes, there is. Okay, so I'm just saying, but so what? I mean, so what if they're not? If there's,
well, when you say yes, there is. Are you speaking?
Yeah, I'm speaking
personally?
about myself. Yes.
Well, see, I can't possibly see you that way.
Well, I can. Okay, and
Okay.
I don't want to. See, I don't want to have to defend that to you in a certain way. I don't want to have to try to prove it to you. But let's put me aside.
Well, you brought it up.
Yeah, but okay, but the point is, I'm saying there are people who never actually get very good at a lot at stuff in life. They don't. You know, it's like I'm just saying, you've had the experience in your life of you walked away from the art world. Correct.
You walked away from
the art world, from the photography.
From the art world. Yeah.
Yeah,
I walked
you
away.
didn't like it, right? But it wasn't because people were going, you know what, your stuff just isn't good enough, guy.
No, I was getting a lot of positive feedback.
That's what I'm saying. What if you had never gotten that and then you actually had a lot of agreement with your work as a psychologist too, correct? I mean, you had a lot of people respecting it, and you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You weren't the head of the American Psychological Association or anything, but I'm just saying there are some people who never are going to get those kinds of accolades or agreement.
What if I understand you, Maggie? You're saying that you never really received approval.
That possibly, and certainly, and not from myself, and honestly, with good reason. Sometimes.
Well, that's very hard. See that I'm not asking you to convince me. Okay, that's not.
Felt a little bit like that.
No, forgive me. I can be very direct. I understand that can be off-putting. Mostly, we expect people to walk around these issues, but I find it's better to just go directly into it. If we were doing psychotherapy, I would not. Then I would know that we can do this for a year if we need to, and I'll allow you to discover your story piece by piece. But this isn't psychotherapy. I'm just trying to reply in a way that both meets your needs and that the other people who are hearing this may find it helpful. So what I'm saying is, whatever your internal deficits may be, they're not visible. So take heart. You can get away with it. You're convincing enough, what I mean. I mean, I watched you dance last night. You're a hell of a good dancer.
That to me is so irrelevant to
Why?
some other things.
Why? Do you know
I
how
don't
many?
wanna do
Do you
it
know
on
how many
camera.
people? Do you know how many people would love to be that free?
That's not. I don't know how else to talk
No,
about it.
explain. It's not what.
Because there are other things where my problems have been more, where there have been problems, and they've affected other people
Okay.
in ways that I don't like
Well,
looking back on.
only you can know that, and I don't think we want to get into the details.
Yeah, we don't. Okay.
But what I'm saying is, you're an accomplished dancer anyway, and that's not nothing. There are so many people in this world. If you ask them, they'll say, "I can't dance. I don't know how to dance," and I don't. It's too hard for me to get out on the floor, and people watch me, and I'm clumsy, and you don't have a shred of that apparently, from what I witnessed.
Thank you.
So really, I'm not playing Pollyanna here. I'm just trying to encourage all of us. You may have wanted to be an artist and you aren't. I don't know what the failures are. I got to do that, and I'm glad I did. It was very good. In fact, people love my photography now, and I enjoy their praise. So I'm not discounting that. But I wasn't really that great a father. I wasn't. My children have, when we've talked about it, they had a bit to forgive, both of them. And so I could have been more accomplished in that realm. And so, you know, we all have our things, I think, all of us. I know I do. And I think it's sometimes a bitter pill, but to learn to live with what one really is. And
Can I hear more about how you handled that when you understood that more?
How I handled it.
With your children?
It made me sad when I had to listen to it from them. And I decided, okay, for my deficits in the past, now I'm going to pay back by keeping my mouth shut and letting them talk for as long as they want, even though it sometimes made me feel like crying. That's how I handled it. And then I said, I'm so sorry. I was young. I was all caught up in my art projects and didn't pay enough attention to you. I know that's what this is really about. I wish that I had. If I had it to do now, I would be a good father. But you don't get to go back and play catch up. And they both forgave me.
And did you find then that maybe did you find after that those thoughts, you didn't have any recurring kinds, that didn't come back up?
I wouldn't say that.
So at that point, then you handled it the way you've talked about some other things. You just
Those are thoughts that can arise at 3 a.m. or whatever. We all have them. And how I handle it, to be honest, I try to deal with it at 3 a.m. if I can, but I find that listening to talk shows on the internet puts me to sleep real quick, so I might resort to that also. So basically, I think what I'm trying to confess with these details is that it's really okay to be human and fuck up. We all do. We all do. We must. There's no school for how to do this. There isn't. There's no school for how to do this. There really isn't. So we're all improvising as best we can in every moment. And I'm going to reiterate this again, because here I am at the front of the room, seemingly instructing, but I want everyone to understand that I don't know more than anyone else about the real nitty-gritty. I know how to handle my side of it, and I've been fortunate because I'm kind of off the hook. I'm off the hook because I know that I'm not doing this, and so I can't really be held responsible for it. And I knew that when my kids were criticizing me, but it still hurt, and I certainly had the good grace not to tell them that. So there's no perfection in this awakeness. You still have to pay the dues. And that's my objection to this world of spirituality. These people seem to be suggesting that you go to this place of perfection and there's no more paying any dues. There's no escape from this ship until you die, and then it's burial at sea and the ship keeps sailing. And the rest of the people still need dinner and everything, and that's what happens. That's the whole story, you know. And that's why that's the basis on which I criticize these teachers. If I would hear them talking more about that stuff, I could respect their metaphysics a lot more. It seems to me that they're using the metaphysics as an escape hatch. They have this, what I call an attractive fantasy. And because it's attractive, it's pleasant. Everyone wants to be in an attractive situation with an attractive girlfriend or whatever, and be at the best table in the room and all that. And I think these fantasies of transcendence are an attractive fantasy. I'm not transcending anything, I'm going just through it. And I'll go through the next thing without any transcendence at all. And some of it is really difficult and agonizing. I've talked about Robert Hall a lot. He's a man I really admired. Very honest man, which I don't meet people like that so often. And since it's also a feature of myself that I like, we hit it off good on that level right off the bat. Robert's last couple of years of life were agonizing. He was ill. A quarter of his brain was destroyed by stroke. He lost the ability to walk. He became blind. He had to be helped to do everything, and yet he was aware. And I would go and speak with him, and he would tell me, I wish I could die. I wish I could die. And one day I said to him, do you want me to help you die? And he said, I've thought of it, I can't do it. So that's what we have to look forward to, perhaps. And so that's why I don't want some teacher to tell me, we're just dreaming here anyway, it's no big deal. The real truth is out there somewhere. You'll attain it later when you meditate long enough. I don't think so. Robert meditated all his life. Didn't get him off the hook. And he was honest enough to tell me about it. I recorded some of it and put it on the internet. Some people here, I think, have heard that. But there were parts of that conversation that I had to elide. I had to cut them out because they were too personal, and also they were probably too painful for most people to even listen to. That's how honest he was. So this may seem depressing to hear someone talk this way, the way I'm talking, and saying there's no exit, there's no getting out of this, whatever tradition may tell you, Jesus or whatever, I don't think so. And so it may seem depressing, but my confession is that when it's really accepted, it's the opposite of depression. It's like an amazing opening, not into joy and happiness, but into reality. And then you can just sit there with whatever arises, and you know you're going to deal with it one way or another, even if it is listening to a talk show. At least you haven't melted down entirely. So whatever works, my dears, that's what I'm saying. Don't let someone convince you that there's some ideal state to attain. I don't think there is. I'm not asking you to believe me. Goodbye, Elena.
Bye,
See you later. Bye. Come to dinner. I don't think she can come to dinner tonight. I think she has to eat with the women. There's a women's conference going on in this town simultaneous with this one. Otherwise, all the women would be here. Robert is such a dreamboat. I want to go and listen to him talk about death and no salvation. I'm really dying to hear all that.
Dying to.
Yes, you're dying to. Well, this is just what the Buddha said. You know, there's nothing continues. You really go out like a light. It's impermanent. It's like the morning dew it's like the early dew in the morning sun. If one can embrace that, it adds so much beauty to this world. That's my true confession. When you know that it's not forever, and not only that you won't be here, but the things you love will be taken away. A tree you loved, a hurricane. I planted a tree that I dearly loved. I used to go because it became really tall and majestic, and I had planted it from a seed. And it was just so beautiful to go there and touch it, say, how are you doing today? You know, kind of speak with the tree. We had a hurricane in 2013 that flattened that tree and a lot more stuff that I planted. And I really felt it. That's impermanence. Everything you love will be taken. Everything. Now that can seem depressing and sad, but it also makes the things that you love that are here now impossibly beautiful. More beautiful than anyone could ever make them by putting makeup on them or whatever has to happen to add to some beauty. Everywhere I look, I see beauty. Everywhere. I could see beauty in dog shit. I really mean this. The fact that I'm only getting to do this for this brief moment and then the lights will go out, it makes wanting to imbibe this experience, you know, drink the cup. Oh, drink the cup. So your friend, Miriam Louisa, I was telling you, and I are having this long distance, wonderful conversation back and forth. She's an art person and just a wonderful being, I find. And she said, we were talking about, well, she read something I wrote about impermanence, and she said, so for you it's impermanent. And I said, yeah, and drink the cup right down to the dregs. And she writes, bravo. Just drink the cup. Drink the cup. It may seem bitter, but once it goes down, things can look a lot rosier. Not because you've put makeup on them, but because they really are. It's beautiful to be here. Even in declining health, it's still beautiful to be here. Not in every moment, I get that, but certainly there are moments of beauty. Certainly there are. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Well, when that happens, celebrate it for all you're worth, because it's going away as fast as it's arising. See, that's my feeling is on all of this is slipping through our fingers. We can't catch it. It's like water. You try to hold it and bring it home, but by the time you get home, there is none left. You can only drink it now. And I think we started with that question. I can't remember though what Paul was asking.
But you can only touch it now, or something.
What he referred to Walter's poem in a living stream of, oh, what can you touch right now? That's what Paul asked. What does it mean to touch it right now? That's what it means. If it's here now, to touch it right now. If someone gives you a hug, which I fortunately had today, really experience that hug, not as if it's habit, oh, it's just a hug. No, it isn't. It really isn't. It's not just a hug, it's everything in that moment, if you let it be. And this is true even of things that don't feel good. I mean, this may sound strange, because I was in agony, but there were times when I really embraced that agony and I was relieved of it instantly and felt really happy. I couldn't sustain it. I went back into, oh boy, I'd like to kill myself. I did get back into that. But then a moment would come when the pain was still there, but the pain was beautiful because it wasn't a steady pain. It kept changing and it was impermanent, and it kind of gave me a promise that the pain would be gone someday. It would pass away, and it gave me enough of whatever to deal with it. So that's really what I'm saying, Kara. And you know, Miriam Louisa really loves you. She sent me an email and said, my friend Kara's coming down to see you, take good care of her. So I hope I am. I want to. Thank you. So I guess we're going to end it now, and if there's no more. Yeah, and we're going to dinner. Half hour from now is when we're slated to arrive.